Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into Boots on the Ground. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Will Bratton, and we're here like we are every week to talk a little St. Louis City SC, even though we don't actually have a game to break down because they were off this past weekend, but we still got some news to break down. Obviously, Joachim Nilsson has been bought out. St. Louis City has a match coming up in just over 24 hours, and there's some other little things, too, because we're going to be joined later on in the show by St. Louis City 2 head coach and city technical director, John Hackworth. So we got a lot of things to talk about today on the show. If you want to join the show, you can. Boots on the Ground on STL Sports Central right there in the chat. Jump into the show if you got any questions or comments. We will get to them today. Also, you can make sure you like, share, and subscribe right here to STL Sports Central on YouTube. Hit the bell button so you know whenever we're going live. Will, how was your cityless weekend and into this week?
It felt boring. I was like, I didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? It was quiet, I guess. Yep. Nothing going on Saturday for like the first time this summer, but it was good. Can't complain.
So obviously the big news that came out of the week is City making a change. Joachim Nilsson is out. He has been bought out. That clears up some space on the City's salary cap, spears up some space in the roster, cost ownership a little bit of money to ship him out immediately. But your thoughts when you saw what was kind of an expected move finally come down?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense with this roster. It frees up a lot of TAM, which is very valuable. Obviously, it's going to cost money in terms of liquid cash to buy out a contract like that, but it's less TAM that you have to pay. So that TAM can carry over into 2026 now with the contract buyout.
Is everything TAM now? Aren't we getting rid of the difference between CAM and GAM? Is it all TAM now?
No, I think TAM and GAM still exist.
What the hell did they get rid of then? The good thing is we're not the only one who get confused by these rules. John Hackworth did admit they are confusing as well, as we laid out some of the rules of the City 2 rosters and things like that. So these rules are not confusing to only you. They're not only confusing to us. They also even stump the people in the building.
Yeah, it's no surprise. MLS is the most complicated league in the world. And I mean, now that's a little bit of an exaggeration, probably, but it's obnoxious. The good news is you don't have to worry about looking into it too much because Rock and I will do that for you. And a little bit here, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the current roster situation. Obviously now sitting with one slot open. Does that mean a transfer is coming in automatically? My answer is absolutely not. It doesn't mean that, but it makes it a lot easier if a player were kind of, waiting in the wings to be brought up. Rock, what do you think?
I mean, anytime you can free up a spot on the roster, listen, roster space, I know a lot of people want to say it's money provided by the ownership, but roster space is actually the thing that has handicapped their ability to make moves.
Yeah.
And so getting just a free roster spot at that level where you can pretty much slot in any TAM level player or below to a point. We can get into that later if we want to. It just opens up everything for City. It gives them opportunity, it gives them chances, it gives them flexibility. And they haven't had that since the end of 2023 when you talk about how they're building the roster. They've been handcuffed in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, this freedom, it was necessary. It was needed. It's unfortunate for Joachim Nilsson, who's obviously one of the best players to talk to, one of the best players on the field when he's healthy, but it was a move that had to be made for St. Louis City to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. He's a world-class player. He's got the experience that he has for a reason. He's earned those stripes. The dude is an absolute baller at center back. It's a real bummer he never got to contribute in the ways that he wanted to with St. Louis. I think he accumulated 36 matches, including a Leagues Cup game across all 3 seasons. So
just wasn't enough.
Yeah, it's just not enough for a player that you're paying $1.3 million a year and is eating, a very important slot on your roster. So definitely a necessary move, definitely a bummer of a move, but that's business. It happens. Now you have Falou Fall, who's in the mix, your new left center back. You still got Kessler, who's now available this weekend against Nashville for the first time in weeks. And you have Timo Baumgartel. So you've got, some quality center backs still in the mix. So, it's not detrimental, but it is very sad to see.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like you said, getting Falou Fall in, you now have the bodies. You can run any formation you want for the most part with the depth you have at center back. You can move people around. That's, that kind of versatility and flexibility they haven't had. And in fact, let's just look forward a little bit, this injury report just completely clear other than Michael Wenzel, and it gives David Critchley some difficult conversations, but obviously you'd rather have that than what City was dealing with the entirety of the year before this.
Yeah, right. I mean, having only Michael Wenzel on the injury list just sounds like a lie. It sounds like you're not telling the truth. Obviously, that is the truth. We have Chris Durkin back. JGR has been healthy for a while now. Rasmus Alm, of course, season-ending injury, so he's not on the report at least, but he's not available. You have some new blood, and they're all healthy. Henry Kessler is back. I mean, everything is a great situation in terms of health for the St. Louis City team. And so this is a match that could provide a lot of hope for fans in terms of 2026, because now you're seeing, what is this current roster kind of capable of against one of the hottest and best teams in the league right now in Nashville. Kind of caught everybody by surprise. Of course, Sam Surridge and Hani Mukhtar and, Schaffelberg, and they've got some great players. They've just been tearing it up. So it should be a very interesting match this weekend at home. If you get 3 points, all of a sudden 2026 looks a lot brighter, because a lot of the players that are going to start in this match are going to be the same players that are here next year. A lot of them, not all of them. And then you'll see a lot of depth get turned over and upgraded. Maybe some homegrowns brought up and put on that supplemental roster, which, of course, we're going to talk with John Hackworth about in a little bit. So it's a very, very exciting match this weekend.
I want to put up the roster breakdown that you always put together. That's always so damn fantastic, because we have a question there on the bottom. Is there a move coming? I know you don't think there's a move coming. You're not the big one there, but break down for us a little bit why you don't think there's a move coming, but why this move from Nilsson opens so many things up when we're looking here at the roster breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's clear that, a $1.3 million salary just opened up, and St. Louis have an international roster slot and a senior roster slot available. They have the ability to sign like a Cedric Toyshirt, for example, right now. The question is, are they going to do that? And in my opinion, I don't really think it's coming, because this winter gives them a lot more flexibility, and they'll be able to buy players from Europe who are in season. So I think buying right now at those kinds of positions that you need, which are left back, where you already have a Band-Aid and a player who's playing great in Padelford, that maybe you find a way to steal from Minnesota, and then you don't have to purchase the left back.
You think I've forgotten about that? I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm still on my horse about this whole third-round pick for a guy that you have no control over. I'm not in the, St. Louis City is not some feeder club in the business of developing other people's left backs. What the hell's going on here? Also, I have to question the idea of anyone sending their left back to St. Louis City SC to develop. Do you know what happens to left backs?
They all go here to die.
What are you doing? This is a bad idea. You should let them stay here.
Rock trying to work some voodoo magic here, but he's not wrong. I mean, if you can keep Devin Padelford, that's a great situation. That's a spot you don't really have to invest as heavily into. Maybe you get another option there as well. I think a CDM is in the future for sure.
Oh, really?
The question is, Conrad Wallem, are you going to purchase his loan? Most likely not. So he goes away. Chris Durkin migrates off a U22 contract, and he's expensive, and he gets injured, and he he concedes a lot of fouls and a lot of cards. He's a player that's high energy, but that comes at a cost. Is that something that you want next to Edouard Leuven in the long term, who's a much more timid player in that midfield? I think you need someone more controlled next to him, in my opinion. So are you looking to move Chris Durkin in this winter? Obviously, his contract expires this year with an option in 26. They could try to move him now. They could try to move him in the winter, or they could even let him walk. So they have a lot of options. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover, and the winter gives them way more flexibility and, in my opinion, comfortability to kind of make those moves. So I don't think they're going to rush to sign anybody in the short term here. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if the right player falls into Lutz's lap, if they find that left back they want long term, if they find, some outstanding left winger or something like that, that's a position they could upgrade at, or maybe even a 6. If it just falls into their lap, I think they'll purchase, because why not? You have the slot and get that player locked down while you can. But I don't think they're going to force anything. I think the conditions would have to be perfect. And for that reason, I don't think a move's coming.
By the way, if you want to look at the flexibility that Will's referring to in that contract through slot right there in the middle, just see how many of those say 2025. That's obviously the big thing when you look at that. It's why these are useful. One quick thing here, because I just have a quick question while we're looking at this. Never mind. I figured it out. This is the fun thing. Sorry. A spot is open on the senior roster. We've talked a lot about getting Mykhi Joyner a contract, which will be on the supplemental roster.
Yes.
Is there a way that City could move, and how much money would it cost them around generally to move one of the supplemental roster players into the now open senior spot, and then opening a supplemental spot for a Mykhi Joyner to get a contract for the rest of this year?
So my understanding of the rules, and we think back to Celio Pompeo when he did this exact thing. He went from the supplemental to the senior roster. Is that
he went from about $100,000 to about $250,000 a year.
Yes.
Salary wise.
I don't think it costs them anything to migrate them up, but once they migrate up, they can never be on a supplemental roster again for your club in the duration of their contract. So if you're going to do that, it's irreversible. So the player to do that to, and they also have to make a certain amount of money. They have to make above $109,000 a year. So 109,001 would be enough, for example. And the only two players that they can do that with are Josh Yara and Ben Lunt. Now, it makes the most sense to do that. I mean, either of them makes sense really because they have expiring contracts. So it doesn't really cost them anything. They have to give them a new contract in 2026, which I think can be on the supplemental roster, to my understanding of the rules. Now, I mean, I don't think Josh Yara is going to be on this team in 2026. I think Ben Lunt might be. So maybe you do that with Josh Yaro, move him to the senior roster, and then you just let him walk at the end of the year. And then you can plug Mykhi Joyner onto that supplemental roster for the end of 2025.
Some water thrown onto my Mykhi Joyner fire when we talked to John Hackworth, because apparently they like him as a left winger.
Yeah.
Mainly as a left winger. That's where he fits the best. Feel like you could fit pretty well on the right wing personally, but hey, I'm not the one coaching the team. I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're just going to have to give up on that little pipe dream, Will.
You know, I don't think it has to be fully given up on. I mean, tactics change all the time. You know, coaches move things around. They change things. If they want to run in,
we run a 4-back pressing system at this club, damn it. Formations and tactics don't change.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily. It's just specific roles. Like if you don't have Tomas Totland, for example, things change.
Oh, that's fair.
You know, especially with the right and left wing, they change a lot, and even the CDM. So, and we talked a little bit with John about that as well. So that is a very fun interview coming up later.
Yes, let's get into the first team head coach, because just yesterday, David Critchley sat down with the media and broke a few things down to us. I thought there were some interesting takeaways from practice, or training, I should say, with David Critchley. The first one was him talking about just this Nashville matchup.
Yeah, I think when you talk about it, I look at it for two ways as a coach. I look at it, collectively, what I can help the group with, but then also individually. One of the biggest ones we've talked about is how much duel rate we have to win in this game, just in the 1v1 moments with every player on the field. So we think if we have a good high individual duel rate, we can be successful. One of my jobs is to make sure the guys remain compact in the structure, limit the space on these types of players to hurt us. So if we can get the collective compactness right and these guys come out and win their duels, hopefully it'll help us this weekend.
Your thoughts on David Critchley? Stay compact, win duels. Obviously, it's going to be more complicated than that against one of the best offenses in Nashville. But overall, I think the stay compact part of it is an interesting thing. We can probably extrapolate a much more detailed defensive game plan just from that point that he's given us.
Yeah, no, I think it requires your stay-at-home CDMs.
Yep.
I think it's a perfect match unironically, for a JGR CDM, although I don't think that will happen. I think that this is the kind of profile that fits that, because Nashville, they're very strong up the middle of the pitch, and they have some good playmakers on the wings that get balls into the box. So I think Joao Klaus is going to have a heat map that shows him a little further dropped in centrally a lot. I think he's going to be an outlet option a lot of the time. And we've seen him do this a lot. That's why Rock's saying shocking. Obviously, not in every matchup does that make sense, but in this one, it really does. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense. So I think we're going to see that a lot. I think we're going to see the 6 dropping into the fullback spot, and Tots, if Tots gets to start, just staying up high. I think that makes more sense to me than starting Wallem there in this specific match, so that you can have your CDMs staying as central as possible and not, getting moved out of position and creating gaps for guys like Hani Mukhtar. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think staying compact against Nashville is good.
Let's not forget they don't have any CMs for this matchup. Wallem out, Durkin out.
That's right. I forgot suspensions. That's a very good point.
They don't got any CDMs.
Yeah, so Tots will definitely get the start on the the right back then. And Durkin, serving a red card suspension from his very wonderful tackle in the box.
It was a bad press attempt from Simon Besher. We went over this.
We did.
If you guys weren't aware of that, you can go listen to last week's episode of Boots on the Ground. We actually also broke down Falu Fall's incredible passing performance. It was really just one really good pass, but it was a really good pass. You should check that out. Let's head back to David Critchley. He knows more than us. He broke down something we have been talking about: City's lack of playing a full 90. Are they finally there? Is this finally the game where they play that full 90?
These guys are getting fitter. They're getting sharper. So I think we're hopefully very close to it. Hopefully it's this Saturday. But yeah, we know we've put together good spells in games, whether that's a time spell, like a 45-minute, 60-minute, or we've been really good on one side of the ball, maybe not both. So, and that's a collective, right? If I say we're good on the offensive side, I don't just mean Klaus and the forwards. I mean, Roman, Timo, the defenders. Collectively, we're good on one side of the ball. So, the balance right now is the most important thing for this group. We want to put an entertaining, attacking style of soccer out there for the fans and to win games. But sometimes you have to have a mindset of how do you respond defensively as well, quickly. So that balance, I think, is what we are trying to figure out right now. We're getting closer every week to it.
I've said it the last few games as we've commented on their lack of playing the full 90. This team cannot win without playing a full 90. They're just not raw talented enough. Maybe if they're completely healthy and everyone's playing at the top of their game, they can get away with it against a bad team like the Galaxy when they did get away with it. But this team has not played a complete game the entire season, even in their wins. And so they need to step up and they need to play a full 90, because if they play anything short of that, if it's 80 minutes and they give Nashville 10 minutes of the ball, they'll jump on it, and those will be the times they score the 2 goals, and now you're losing 2-1 again. They can't let it happen. I know he's saying they're getting there, but everyone's healthy. Everyone's locked in. This has got to be the game where we see a full 90 for St. Louis City SC against one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah, the most important thing for me in this match is if they score a goal, I need them to score another one quickly. I don't care if it's even the first goal of the game. If Nashville scores early and City, goes on to tie it up, those are the games that they tend to lose, right? So they need to score that second goal. When they score a goal, they need to not worry about, being scared of losing. They need to be hungry to put the nail in the coffin and take the 3 points away from a good team. You get an opportunity here to show yourself. A lot of players in contract years that maybe won't be here in 2025. Where are you going to go in 2026 if it's not here? You got to earn that next contract. So I think everyone on the pitch is going to be pretty hungry here. I think it's going to be a good match, and I think it will be closer to a full 90-minute performance. Critch has talked about getting 1% better, every single week, every single day in training and things like that. I think they've had now 2 weeks to get multiple percents better. And I think that they can get to that 90-minute mark.
Without Durkin, without Wallem, against one of the best offensive teams in the league and needing your sixes to be defensively solid, will they play it, and can City get away with starting both Ustrak and Wallem together?
Ustrak and Leuven.
Leuven, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they can, honestly. I think if the two of them are very disciplined, and Tomas Ustrak, obviously we know that he loves to tackle, right? But he tends to lose his spacing on the pitch. He kind of forgets where he's at. So if he can stay head on a swivel and stay very aware of the situation, and him and Edu just kind of sit in and just be disciplined, I really think it'll be fine. Now, I think an alternative too, like I said, and I know this is probably not going to happen, but throw JGR in there with Leuven. At least for the first 60 minutes or so, and then let Ustrak get in at the end or something.
They have all this center back depth now. Why not try it out?
Exactly.
Heck, you know what? You know who I want to see play center and defensive midi?
Tyson Pierce?
No, I was going to go with Yazzie Orozco.
Oh yeah,
If we would have had more time with John Hackworth, I would have been like, I'm not crazy here. I feel like he's got the profile. But I did that already with my Brendan McSorley comparison, so I got to save that for another interview. Speaking of which, we're actually going to kick it over right now to the second half of our show. We, I was going to say sat down, but that would have been disingenuous. We stood
We
here.
are standing. Yes, standing
We
today.
stood here and spoke with John Hackworth, who was sitting down at Energizer Park in their whole complex. He probably was actually across the road at the training complex, not actually at Energizer Park, but you get what I'm saying. Their whole beautiful complex. John Hackworth joined us from there to talk a lot about the success of St. Louis City 2 over the last 2 months. Some of the players that we've been locking in, we got some deep dives into Mykhi Joyner, Tyson Pierce, definitely Miggy Perez. A lot of St. Louis fans, if you've been wondering what's been going on with Miggy Perez over the last 2 years, dive in with this interview right now with John Hackworth. This is Boots on the Ground. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Will Braden. Coming up right now, it's John Hackworth, St. Louis City Technical Director and City 2 head. Back into Boots on the Ground right here on STL Sports Central. I'm Matthew Rocchio, joined always by Will Bratton on this program. But today, we got a third person joining us today. We're very welcome to be joined by City 2 interim head coach, also City technical director, John Hackworth joins us today. John, thank you so much for joining us on Boots on the Ground. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're doing fantastic. Obviously, things are going extremely well for City 2 right now. 11 matches unbeaten. Since you took over, you guys have been on an absolute tear. We're winning a couple games before that as well. Just tell us what's been the biggest change since you took over, that first match in June.
I don't know that there's been really big changes. David Critchley had done a great job with this team earlier in the year. Now he's with our first team. But the staff and the players are fantastic. And so when you have a good group of people to work with, people that come to work every day, that want to learn, that are excited about being pushed in all the right ways, it makes it fun. So we have a fun environment. Luckily, we're all very competitive, and we push ourselves pretty good. That's kind of been the secret to our success.
And I know, obviously, you love being a coach. So how does it feel for you over the last couple of months to be back on the sideline managing a group of players?
Yeah, I'm in heaven. On the grass, between the white lines is where I love to do the best work, the real work, so I'm having a great time. Again, it's helpful that I have good people around me.
Absolutely. And of course, a busy week for you guys. You had a midweek game, another win, no surprise there. You also have a game coming up on Sunday. So I again appreciate you giving us some time on a busy weekend. Obviously, City, since the get-go, has talked about the importance of developing the young player. And I know it's been crucial for you guys this season. A lot of young players have been showing out. A lot of City fans ask us about some of those young players. So let's dive into a couple of the profiles. Obviously, the big name, Mykhi Joyner. We've seen him 4 or 5 times with the first team. He's the second leading scorer in MLS Next Pro. He's never missed a penalty kick in his professional career. Mykhi's a pretty special player, but what makes him so special that we don't know? Oh, sorry. Say that again.
I said you jinxed Mykhi because now he hasn't missed the PK. And
on Sunday we missed one. That is on Matthew Rocchio.
For sure, Matthew. I can't believe you did that. I told Tim Kelly, our set piece coach, before we played Vancouver on Wednesday night, I said, hey, we haven't given up any goals on set pieces. And lo and behold, we gave up 2 goals on set pieces. So, the jinx is on. That's okay. I won't let Mykhi take one on Sunday. His real name is number 59, by the way. So fans should know that until he signed a first-team contract, we just referred to Mykhi as 59. And that's because that's the number he was wearing at Scott Gallagher when he played so good against us in 21, that we're like, hey, you need to come over and play for our academy. And he did, and he wore 59. He still wears 59. So I affectionately call Mykhi number 59.
I like that.
Your other question was about his qualities. I'm really proud of Mykhi. He's getting better and better every single training session. He's performing better in games. As an example, like for the last 4 years, we've all been trying to get him to, he's creative. He's very attack oriented, but we're trying to get him to make the next play. So if the play didn't come off, coaching staff, older teammates would say, hey, Mykhi, get on with the next play. The next play is most important. And last week in training, he literally yelled that to one of the younger academy players. I think it was Alex Junt, 15-year-old who just made his debut at City 2. And here you have Mykhi, it's okay, get on with the next one. And I threw everything up in the air. I'm like, I'm done. like the kid's grown up. So he's awesome to work with. He's one of 4 homegrowns that are playing really well right now for City 2. And, you see those guys getting opportunities with the first team. And it's just a matter of time for our fans. You just got to be patient, because when you talk about player development, it is a long-term process. But I'm really so excited about these young guys matriculating up the pathway so that they can play in Energizer Park. Some of them already have, but I think they'll feature there in the future on a regular basis.
One last quick point about Mykhi, because people have been making a lot about the positioning factor, and I think we talked to you last year about how we make a little bit too much of positions. But he's listed as a left winger, but he's obviously likes to score goals, and almost all of his shots come from the left side. So is there a profile for him from the right side of the field instead?
Yeah, he can come in, and when we play with inverted wingers, he's as good on the right, but it's a different type of service, and he himself has to find a different path to goal from the right-hand side. So I would say when we put him on the right, he's very good at providing the service into the box. It's a beautifully, served ball, a lot of bend on it towards goal, so we call it an in-swinger. When he's on the left, though, he's in his more natural position, and that's where he likes to come inside, drift outside. He'll take what the defense is kind of offering him, and he's really dangerous from there. So I prefer to play him wide left.
Interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, talking about some of these other homegrown players, obviously Miguel Perez has had plenty of moments with the senior team, especially in 2023. So can you talk to me about, how things have been going with him back at City 2 this year?
Yeah, I can't even imagine, that he has developed as much as he has since 23, but it just is we take for granted that these young kids are teenagers, and what were we doing when we were teenagers? Well, I wasn't playing professional soccer, even though I would have loved to have been, so and Miggy, he went from being in the limelight in 23. We sent him on loan last year with Birmingham in the USL Championship. That was a tough time for him because it was the first time outside of St. Louis at all. But it's the fact that he came back this year and has mainly featured with our 2 team and has played so well, earned himself a call up and got an appearance against Aston Villa. Like, Miggy has done a phenomenal job of just taking all of the lessons that you need to take and really trying to apply it to his own game. He's almost like a veteran, and he's still only 20 years old. I keep playing him at right back right now and even left back. And the joke around the team is that, I'm going to stick him there for the rest of the season. I'll try not to do that, but he's played his way into being such a valuable piece of our team. It's really nice to see.
You mentioned a couple of things there about Miggy that I wanted to touch on, because obviously in your other role as technical director, you do have to address the question of whether or not a loan is the best decision for a young player. So when you guys are having those discussions about a potential loan for a player, what are the factors that you guys are considering the most?
I think environment and then playing time. And we thought Miggy needed he needed for himself to get out of the St. Louis bubble. So that was the first part. We felt like he was more than capable of playing in the USL Championship level with men. Birmingham, the president and the coach there, friends of mine. And so I felt like we were sending him to a place where he would be taken care of. It doesn't, change the fact that he had to play and perform there in order to be on the field. And he did that. I mean, I think he played almost every game, didn't get a lot of starts last year with Birmingham, but he did have to literally, figure out how to do everything as an adult on his own. And that's part of growing up. And that's part of, again, while you're trying to become a professional athlete, you still have to mature as a person. And so all of those factors, Matt, are really important when we're talking about a place. It's got to be the right place with the right people. And it's got to give the particular player, little bits of what they need to get better.
And then one other thing you mentioned, obviously, you're playing Miggy out at the fullback spot. Tyson Pierce is another guy that we've seen play both fullback spots, also played center midi. What is it about, and maybe this is a specific scheme thing for St. Louis City's scheme, what is it about the fullback spots and center midi spots that make it not necessarily interchangeable, but make it useful to get players minutes at those two specifically with guys like Wallem, Perez, Pierce, and so on?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's because of our style and what we're asking those position-specific players to do, because often what you'll see is we bring our outside back and we bring them into the midfield almost to then switch from being an outside back to being a defensive midfielder. And you mentioned Miggy, but like Tyson is so good at that, Conrad is excellent at that. So we've been doing that a lot, and it does create an overload, a numerical advantage into the center of midfield. When you have the ball and can move guys around, it also gives the opposition fits, because then they don't know where their, opposition player are. And when you talk about Miggy, like against Vancouver on Wednesday night, I started him wide right, but he was inside half of the time, and then he would come outside, and then he was getting around McSorley and getting serves off into the box. So his mobility in general is something that we love, and we like that out of all of our players, but we do that a lot with our outside fullbacks and turn them into midfielders.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought he had a very good match against Vancouver. And this will be the last thing I'll ask you about Miggy, because we got some other players I know that we want to talk about too.
Okay.
But I'm kind of curious what you've noticed with his development. Obviously, you talked about, maturing as an individual, but part of that is getting physically larger. And from the last time I had seen Miggy to seeing him more recently, dude's big. I mean, he grew a lot, So did that play any kind of role in moving him to a more like quote unquote defensive type position? Obviously it's very situational tactically, but moving him into that kind of fullback spot and getting inside.
I definitely think that your point of him just maturing physically, our performance staff does a great job. We do a significant amount of work in the weight room right now. But you're also just seeing a boy become a man, and that's nice to watch a player or a person grow. And then you watch him, work at his craft, and you see a player like Miggy. I wasn't sure that he could play the fullback position. I can't remember the first game we did it. Nia, do you remember the first game we put Miggy at fullback? It was in the last month and a half, and I remember people were like, "You're going to play him at fullback?" And North Texas. I think so. Okay. Well, anyway, the point is that he did so well there that now the running joke is he can be a fullback, and Miggy does not want to play fullback. Like, he does not. But because we don't have a ton of depth on our two team right now, and Critchley keeps stealing all of his old City 2 players to go play for the first team. So like, I just have to yank Miggy all over the place. But it's a credit to him. Like, he's become such a good 1v1 defender that I think that opens up a lot of possibilities for him personally in a lot of different positions. When I first got here in 21, I had taken over the under-17 team, and he was our attacking midfielder, which he still is really good at that too. So, fans look for maybe an appearance of Miggy at an attacking mid position later on in the season. But my point is, he has become a really good 1v1 defender, and he's strong, he's brave, he's tough, he's just smart that way. Vancouver using some of their first team players the other night, and I thought Miggy was a standout 1v1 defender.
Another young player that I need to ask you about, and this is tricky because making comparisons is always tricky, but every time I watch Brendan McSorley, I start thinking about a midfielder in the Premier League who also just seems, he's not the fastest, he's not the most physically imposing, but he's going to outrun you, he's going to outduel you. Brendan McSorley reminds me of James Milner. Am I crazy here?
No, not at all. I don't think you're crazy at all. And look, we need to make those kind of comparisons with our own players more often, because I don't want to get on a soapbox, but I think when you look at a Brendan McSorley and you think, oh, kid came out of college, draft pick, and, how high is his ceiling? Well, his ceiling's enormous. I thought he was the best player on the field against Aston Villa in the second half the other night. So I call him Meathead. That's his nickname around here. But I literally think he has a huge ceiling, and he has a very bright future in front of him.
One other little thing before we talk about the match coming up on Sunday. There's been a little talk about a pronunciation from one of the players, and you're his coach, so I have to ask you:
Who are we talking about?
Is it Caden Glover?
No.
Or is it Glover?
Glover.
Okay, so we need to find out who was.
Wait, hold on.
This is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Hold on a second.
Apparently, I'm wrong. It's Glover.
It is Glover.
Nobody knows.
This has been a thing for the last 2 weeks, is because somebody tweeted out that we'd been saying it wrong, and then everyone was like, "I don't think that can't be right," but now we know.
Literally, I get names. I'm notorious for getting names wrong. That's why I nickname people all the times, and then they can't tell me I'm pronouncing their name incorrectly. But I didn't know it was Glover. I thought it was Caden Glover this whole time. So,
does he have a special nickname in the locker room?
Look at Nia. She's the one that is correcting me on that. So.
Yeah, he told us at the beginning of the season it was Glover, and we didn't know until he told us.
Well, thank you, Nia, with a crucial assist there. One last question there, because obviously first homegrown signed. What has been the development for Caden this year, and what's kind of your expectations for him going into the second half of this year and into next year?
Yeah, I'm really proud of him too. He's playing right now some, excellent soccer. He has, like any young player, he's still a teenager, and unlike Miggy, he has never left St. Louis yet. He just graduated from high school. And so watching him play and be very consistent over the last 2.5 months, I've been really proud of him. The other night against Vancouver, we played him as an attacking mid. He had a big defensive responsibility against some very good players that were playing as their defensive mids, and I thought he was excellent. So I'm loving watching Caden just get more consistent with the minutes that he's getting. He's playing, he's got McSorley, he's got Emil, he's got Mykhi. He's got Kuz. There's a lot of competition in training just to get on the field, and I think he's done a good job figuring out how to manage that and making the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, and kind of another thing to that competition point there is he's the only one who currently has a on-roster senior roster slot on the supplemental roster of the first team. So I'm kind of curious, what are these conversations like of, is he going to get minutes there? And or what other players could get kind of brought up into that supplemental roster in maybe 2026?
Yeah, I hope you guys understand all these crazy MLS rules, because they're literally crazy. But as an example, like Mykhi and Tyson are off roster. And so they only get a certain number of call-ups and appearances with the first team, where Caden has an unlimited number because he is on the senior supplemental roster. And that decision is usually made going into the season. There is flexibility with some of the MLS rules. There are times when you can change those. But right now we've left Caden on that supplemental roster spot. Effectively he would be the third guy called into a 9 with the first team right now, in particular with McSorley moving more wide right.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that as well, especially against Aston Villa with Mick Sorley playing on the right side. And I really strongly agree with your point about him being the best player on the pitch in the second half. And Rock and I talked about this a lot too in our post-game show and our last week's edition of Boots on the Ground. He just very much impressed me. What do you think it was about his game in that half against Aston Villa that made him look so elite against some of the world's most physical and talented players in the world?
Well, the first thing is I think that his own expectation of himself is very high. And so along with that expectation, he has ambition, and he had the opportunity and he made the most of it in that moment. He's a better soccer player than we all give him credit for. He's a better athlete. I would say he's faster for sure than we think. He's stronger. He's a fighter, you know. But in that game, what I really loved about Mick Sorley was that he showed off his technical ability. He was good with the ball in tight spaces. You know, I use the phrase "take what the opponent gives you" a lot, and I thought he did a really good job of making decisions. That he didn't put himself in positions to lose a ball. He gave himself opportunities to make attacking plays, and that was a big difference. Something he doesn't do all the time with our team at City 2. I thought he did it really well in that game against Aston Villa.
City 2 faces off against Colorado Rapids 2, third match of the year. You guys got them once earlier in the year. They got you once to start off the year earlier. So what's the plan against Colorado Rapids 2 on Sunday?
Well, I need to give a shout out to my cycling team. They're all listening to this right now. They're called Cool Beans, and my two, I don't really like them very much, but Nate and Alex, here's your shout out, okay? And they're going to be in the stands on Sunday. They've guaranteed me that they're going to be very loud and proud. They'll probably have a lot of pro hack chants, I hope. But that's going to be the key, is that the Cool Beans are rooting us on really hard.
There you go, John. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck to you in City 2. Hopefully you can push it to 12 matches. Hopefully I haven't jinxed everything in this interview.
Everything you're saying right now, all right? Let's just go play a good soccer game and win a soccer game on Sunday.
There you go. Thank you so much for your time today, John. You have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Nia. You guys have a great day.
All right, you too.
A couple reactions here before we move on, Will, because we learned some new things about some City players.
We did.
Because Caden Glover.
Stop it.
That's the only thing I care about. I don't want to talk about anything else. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes of the podcast talking about how it's apparently Caden Glover.
It's not.
It's not. You're just going to
making the rules. It's not Caden Glover. Caden, if you're listening, love you, buddy. Your name is pronounced Glover.
You can't just dead name the guy. That's just
I know. I'll start calling him
Caden
Glover reluctantly, but just I want everyone here to understand that there is reluctance involved. Like, I am upset about this, but I will do it. I'll call him Caden Glover from here on out. You have my word.
Thank you very much to John Hackworth, City Technical Director, also City 2 head coach. They have not lost a game since he took over. They have one draw and 8 wins since he took over. They're absolutely on a tear, and you can watch them again 6 p.m. facing off against Colorado Rapids 2. An absolutely incredible matchup. You get to see all the young players we just talked about in Energizer Park. It's going to be a good time. I think there's a good chance that me and Will might also be in the stadium at some point or another during that game as well. So get out, watch St. Louis City 2. It's going to be a fascinating game again. See all those players we just talked about. Hopefully Mykhi Joyner makes the penalty kick, or else I'm going to be in trouble, Will.
If they earn one, if they can get
earn one.
Kick. In my opinion, best case scenario is they don't get a penalty kick, so that it's impossible for you to have jinxed him, and it can't be Rock's fault, because I don't want to be the co-host of the guy who ruined Mykhi Joyner's entire career by making him not go 100% on his penalty kick conversion. I can't be that. I can't be co-host with that guy. So
this is
penalty kick on Sunday. That's the goal.
This has been Boots on the Ground on STL Sports Central. I'm Matthew Rocchio, and I'm sorry. That's Will Bratton, and he'll be reminding of me of this the rest of my life if Mykhi Joyner misses a penalty, or if their 11-match win streak or unbeaten streak does not continue. Yeah. Long time ago, my mom said, think before you talk, and I never listened.
That is true. I can confirm off-camera interactions. That's true. But we love Rock, though. He's the guy. He's the reason we get to do Boots on the Ground, all these fancy graphics. He's the reason you get your City Circuit fix and get the most in-depth analysis of this team that you can find on the entire internet, packed and backed by visuals that you can't get anywhere else. So we're doing cool stuff here. That's why you're tuning in here right now on Boots on the Ground on STL Sports Central, and every single week. And I want to talk about...
And that's what you know what? Just keep on tuning in to Boots on the Ground.
Yes.
STL Sports Central, Boots on the Ground. If you guys need to check out the podcast, it's going to be on luinfo.com. It's going to be wherever you get your podcasts as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be live on Saturday evening right here on STL Sports Central for the postgame. St. Louis City takes on Nashville SC. You heard our predictions a few minutes ago before we talked to John Hackworth. Hopefully that also wasn't jinxing this entire team. For Will Braden, I am Matthew Rocchio. This has been Boots on the Ground on STL Sports Central. Have a great day, St. Louis.